Hello, welcome to this episode of the Cloud Native Testing Podcast. I'm super thrilled to be joined by Sahana Nagabhushan. Is that correctly pronounced?
Yes, Sahana
Reasonably,
Nagabhushan.
I hope. Great, Sahana, great to see you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm looking forward to spring, although it's a slow start here in Sweden. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Obviously, super excited to talk to you about testing and quality at scale, just in general, but also what you're up to at your venture, Dev Plaza, and how testing and quality fits into all of that. But I'm guessing many of our listeners aren't aware, so please go for it.
Sounds good. First of all, I'm so excited to be here on this podcast with you. I know we've been talking about this for so long, and finally we've made it, so I'm excited. A little bit about me. I used to be a developer in my past lives, and then an analyst, and then a product manager. I worked for Fidelity Investments and Workday. In my developer and analyst days, I used to experience a whole lot of software lifecycle inefficiencies and pain points. And in my product management roles, it was more the technical product management from the perspective of developer experience or developer productivity kind of products. It was a great space. It still is a great space, as you can imagine. Basically, the idea was to ensure that developer communities have everything they need to create their products. And as they're creating their products, they're not going through a whole lot of pain points. And so these products that I worked on were basically to resolve all those kinds of problems. And as a product manager, creating products for the developer communities, you tend to also see how it affects the business side and whether things slow down because of inefficiencies that developer communities experience. And I saw a whole lot of that.
That's
Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's super interesting. And I'm guessing a lot of big enterprises have that people who work on internal products to help develop productivity internally and then to kind of get the maximum or kind of to track efficiency and velocity and all that kind of stuff. So how were you tracking? Were there specific metrics that were applied or what was kind of the way to track the efforts that you were doing?
Yeah, we had all kinds of metrics. Of course, we had product metrics, meaning how does the functional aspect of the product work kind of metrics. But this is more so from the perspective of testing and quality, from the perspective of whether it will perform well and whether it's a stable enough product for customers to actually come and use it. The other things that we used to track internally were also surrounding the engineering metrics about cycle time and how many bugs, how many escape defects, those kinds of things. And that goes on forever, I guess. But in general, the platforms or products that we ended up creating were trying to help all these kinds of problems to get resolved. I don't want to say resolved because it's a big word. It's more to reduce because you potentially can never have perfect quality as such. You will never be at 100%. You'll probably be at 90%, maybe 95% in the best case scenario. And so what I used to focus on at Workday especially was to ensure better testing strategies and quality. And at Fidelity, I used to focus on having a developer portal, but also the focus shifted to having an API platform. In all of these roles, we created all these solutions in-house for good reason. Because I did a whole lot of research, and of course, others on the team also did a whole lot of research. And what we currently have missing in the market is a holistic enough solution that can give the developer communities everything that they need to have that, as I'm beginning to call it, production readiness.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Okay. And so that
I
led you to what you're doing now, I guess, or
yes, exactly.
okay. So tell me about that.
Okay, cool. So as part of being in all those roles and creating these internal solutions, I was like wondering why everywhere I go, I'm creating these kinds of solutions to different extents, focusing on different things, but everything related to software life cycles and efficiencies of how we can make things better for these developer communities. And because I've been in the space long enough, I've also got some free usability testing from the small, medium, large size companies. And I realized that basically everybody else is also doing some form of the solution. And the most common ones that I have heard of is what is called internal developer portals. And even though those kinds of solutions come about in each of these companies in different forms, the intent is still the same, and that is great. But we are doing this everywhere. The stats that I've heard of and done some analysis myself is that we are spending anywhere between $3 and $16 million per year to create these kinds of solutions. We spend a minimum of 2 or 3 years to come up with something a little like we have enough return on investment, but it's not full return on investment. And at some point, even the developer communities and even the executives, right, they're like, where is my full return on investment? And so either they pull the investment or they continue to keep that stagnant. And so I was like, I understand what this space needs, what this persona needs. I've experienced it myself. And I have also tried to create these kinds of solutions to help the communities and also help the business. So that's how Dev Plaza was born. The idea of Dev Plaza is that it provides production readiness. And if you think about like a visual, think of all your vibe coding tools on your left side or your IDEs on your left side, and there is your live environment on your right. In between, there's a whole lot of stuff that needs to be done before it goes into those live environments that the customers use. And we do it in traditional software development, we do it to certain extents. We end up skipping steps, simple stuff like we don't do unit tests until we have to learn it the hard way, or performance tests, or some other kinds of tests, right? It's mostly tests. We don't bring in governance, or we have manual processes. So these kinds of things take away so much time from core business development. So that's what Dev Plaza takes care of by making sure that you go through every stage of the software lifecycle from your I've finished my coding stage to I want to push to production stage and beyond for any other problems that come about. We call it the production readiness layer and the trust layer to go from code generated or code created to code in production.
Okay.
And yeah, it bridges that gap by integrating the tools and the processes and the governance that's actually required for daily software life cycles.
Okay, I think I understand. So basically, like you said, from left to right, from going from code to production, helping you do that more efficiently, faster, I guess. Testing is, of course, I'm sure, a big part of that, but also building and deploying and everything in the middle of it. So, but you did mention IDPs. I just wanted to get back to that because in the community space, we're seeing a lot of uptake on Backstage specifically, but I know there are others. How does that relate to what you're doing? I'm sure that's a common question.
Yes, it is a very common question. Yeah, Backstage is, I want to say, a glorified plugin framework. It is managed by open source communities. It is not full life cycle. It is not production grade. So usually in companies, we end up evaluating Backstage as a potential option for us to do the build versus buy. We think that it's not a good enough solution because it does not give you that enterprise grade quality that you want. But in certain other cases, I have seen that people try it out and they're not happy ultimately because the developer communities are not getting what they want out of it. And so at some point they ditch it and they go back and create their own internal solutions.
But it also,
and so sort of it beats the purpose.
Yeah, so I've heard similar, but I also think it feels to me like Backstage is a more generic framework. Like you said, it's a plugin framework and you can plug in whatever you want, right, to visualize whatever you might want to surface inside your infrastructure, while yours is more purpose built, or Dev Plaza is more purpose on bridging that gap from left to right. And you can, of course, use Backstage and others for that, but you can use them for other things as well. So I guess it's the common, you're maybe a little bit more focused on a specific problem domain. And I'm guessing that's why you're also better at it and kind of helping, if that's really the problem someone wants to solve, instead of going with a more generic framework, it might be worth looking at something more specific. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds pretty bang on.
Okay.
You're absolutely right. The fact that the whole point of Dev Plaza is to make sure that those software lifecycle inefficiencies are reduced such that you actually are production ready. And that ultimately ends up making sure that your customers end up getting good quality and good products that they are able to continuously use is what the goal of the product is. And especially if you think about the age of AI, that's what we are in right now. AI is like amongst the coolest technologies that we've currently got, I guess. But it comes with certain challenges, right? We don't know what the quality is because humans have not written it. It's AI that has written it. And we don't know whether it has satisfied all the functional requirements of what that product expects. We don't know if the trust to ship it to production is there. So I was doing this survey and I asked a few people. I was like, okay, you've vibe coded, great. But how confident are you to ship that to production? Do you feel okay to ship it to production? And people are like, no, not really, because I'm not sure of this, I'm not sure of that. Like several different things that come to mind, especially with all the stats that we've been seeing. And that's, I mean, come on, we had that even with traditional software development that we didn't have 100% confidence. Now imagine with AI, somebody else, some machine is writing code, and humans are expected to make sure that it's in production with all that trust that it needs to have. So yeah, we are in between that whole situation to make sure that production readiness is actually there because of that reason.
I so definitely agree that, I mean, while AI is a wonderful thing and it adds a lot of I don't know, value is a big word, but still production readiness is still, I'm sure, even maybe a bigger concern for many who are adopting AI at scale, just because it does increase velocity and you're generating so much code. But how can you really trust that code? And of course, it goes into testing and quality, and the concept of quality in the age of AI is so super interesting, because ultimately the models are getting so much better that I'm sure in a year or two, the code they'll generate will be even better than obviously much better than it is today. And they'll probably be able to generate tests, etc. So the concept of quality is still, but I'm sure there's still going to be a production readiness concern. And I wonder where does that barrier end up being, and what are the resources you put into that? I have a hard time thinking that it's only going to be AI from idea to production. There still has to be humans in the loop somewhere, and to validate. And even if they are using AI as a tool to do that validation, I mean, it's super interesting. It's just really hard to prophesize about where this is going, because it's going so fast and it's going in so many directions. But I'm guessing it's something that you're also seeing a lot, and people are asking you, I'm sure, that what does production readiness mean in the age of AI?
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And I am also a complete believer in the fact that it can't all be AI. It needs to be AI, the friend of the human that is actually helping with actually shipping that to production with that trust that you need. I mean, it makes you wonder, especially in your space, Ole, because we have the focus is to ensure that there is correct quality. So what does quality mean in this case? Do you want I get asked this question about whether we write tests. No, we don't write tests. We get tools that write tests integrated within DevPlaza. So our philosophy is not to recreate the tools that work well in the market. Our philosophy is to actually bring those tools together and create the process and create that governance and then enable the developers to ship. So if you think about it from the perspective of AI, even if AI writes the code, that's the first step. And that code that has been generated by AI will go into DevPlaza, make sure all those nuts and checks and bolts are tightened up before it actually ships to production, is where we come into the picture. And even with AI, you cannot skip all those steps technically.
No,
So
sure.
if you that's just an immediate hit for quality.
But do you think that AI can help with evaluating production readiness? I'm sure
Yes.
you could have agents that, look at a bunch of metrics that you get from different steps in the pipeline. And I think production readiness is always somewhat relative. And I know that we've had in there our discussions of like quality gates, which is maybe one way to express production readiness, where it's never 100%, right? If people say, if 90% of our tests pass, we're good to go, right? And I'm guessing it's a similar thing here, that production readiness is somewhat it's a relative thing, and AI could, I'm sure, help evaluate that and maybe gather data from a bunch of different data points and different types of tools to give you that confidence.
That's exactly where we are headed as well, actually. We have workflows that we've actually already released for ensuring better quality. And honestly, this came because people said amongst the other workflows that we've already planned, we've done research and people feel like quality is like their biggest problem. And everybody wants to have that high quality and they don't want their bugs to ship to production. And so we ended up focusing on that, and we've actually created our first workflow and rolled it out as well, which is for early bug detection and resolution. And this is exactly helping with, first of all, figuring out what the bug is, why it happened, and how you could fix it. In the next stages, we are obviously also going to be having more agents that will become a part of this workflow and also several other workflows. And that is going to help get insights as well to figure out where there are opportunities for enhancing it. So we don't want to, we don't want to be blind to the problems that are there that customers have raised, or something is about to go into production and then you find like a critical bug and you just get the approval anyway and push it to production. No, we don't want all that. And so, yes, that is where, the insights and analytics that AI produces is where we are obviously also going to leverage that and give those insights back to the teams so that they are able to use that and ensure that they get that confidence and they have actually shipped something without a critical bug or a major bug into production. Yes, AI can be extremely helpful, but we need that AI as the friend and not the main person there.
I agree. What do you think? I mean, something that I've been, encountering with once again our customers is around using AI to generate tests and to do testing, and it feels like a little bit. I'm a bit ambivalent in the sense that when it comes to quality and testing, you want determinism, right? You don't want to. And flaky tests is like the worst thing that can happen because they're non-deterministic, and AI is non-deterministic. So how does that? And we can say, sure, the determinism is going to go up and up and up, but it'll never be 100%. And what are your thoughts around just using AI to generate tests or to do like quality efforts? Is that doable, or is it feasible, or where do we draw the line? Or could you delegate some testing to AI, but there's some testing still has to be done by humans? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a difficult question, to be honest. But you're right. Even I get the same kinds of questions, right? I'm not even in the space of writing, creating only testing solutions. Like you are directly in that space. I mean, in the business of trying to get tools like Testkube integrated with Plaza and provide it to the customers that want to use it. But they still ask me, hey, do we have tests that these tools can write? Or do you help with writing those tests? Because this is actually their biggest problem, because they take so many cycles to actually write clean tests, good tests, relevant tests. And, people write tests sometimes just for the sake of having a check on the automation testing box. And obviously it's useless. So where does AI come into the picture? There are so many tools that have begun to do that. In all the research that I have heard of, it's improving the way that AI writes these tests, but it's not there yet. I think that there's a lot of hallucinations and there's a lot of misses from the perspective of what needs to have a test that needs to be written for a block of code or a function or edge cases. Those kinds of things getting skipped is exactly the kind of quality problems to expect.
Yeah, but I think it also puts the finger on, to your point, if you're prompting AI to generate tests, that, whatever you put in is what kind of comes out, right? So you need to be really clear on your requirements, how you want things to work, and what are the edge cases, to your point. And the AI is not good at guessing in a sense, right? So
exactly.
And so it's just interesting to see. Sometimes you could say that almost makes you, sometimes AI makes me feel more honest about what I'm trying to create, because I have to really think through. If I'm talking to someone, I can say, hey, we need a test for this. And then I'm kind of thinking that that person will have the understanding and context of what I actually need and what I actually want. But you can't do that with AI. You have to be very, very clear, and which I think is a good thing, right? Because it does also force you to think about what are the actual requirements. So how do I actually want it to work? How is paging? I don't know. I'm just making things up. So, and I think so when it comes to creating tests with AI, most of the testing tools today are code-based. So an AI is great generating code. So I'm sure it can do that. And it can definitely help you with scaffolding your tests and getting basic stuff into place. But to really have valuable tests, you need to spend a lot of time giving the AI the context, as you need exploratory testing in the real world. You're going to continue needing it, I think, in the world of
absolutely. I think there's one other thing that I would want to add here. The fact that AI is a system, okay, or a machine that is writing some tests. There is the human aspect of it. You're creating products for hopefully humans. Sure, there are products for agents these days, but then ultimately, it goes to the humans in some form. So how does AI know enough about what the customer wants? And that in so many cases, this is about the sentiment and the emotion and the experience. And it's hard for a machine to figure all this out. And sure, maybe we'll get there someday. I'm not saying no to that, but I think that is still a little far-fetched, which is why we need the humans also telling the AI, here is the emotion, here is the experience. This is what I don't like. There was no test for this particular scenario. It caused a problem in production. So give me a test. So I think that's extremely critical when we are thinking of how to even train the models such that it is able to think that these kinds of things also exist.
Yeah.
And so many things come attached with
Yeah.
feelings.
No, you're right. And it makes me think of, sometimes you want almost AI to be a little bit more skeptic to what you ask it.
Exactly.
Because you ask it to build something, it'll say, okay, I'll build that. Instead of saying, is that really what you want? Is that really going to achieve what your end users want, to your point? And especially when it comes to testing and test creation, maybe AI should be a little bit more questioning. I'm sure they could be if you prompted them correctly or trained them correctly,
Exactly.
etc. But there's currently, I almost sometimes feel like I want more pushback from these models, because I know I'm not always thinking the right thing and asking the right stuff. And I'm sure it does have the right, it's been trained in a way that it could actually say, hey, sometimes it does, right? What do you actually mean? But in many cases, and especially for testing, when it comes to evaluating quality, which can be somewhat subjective, I'm thinking there that AI could also actually be helpful in creating the right tests. But maybe we're not there yet, but I'm sure we'll make, big advancements in that space as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's next for Dev Plaza then? How are you kind of rolling out the product?
So we are actually live, and we have got a few early customers that have started using the product, and they have started seeing some good benefits from it, from the perspective of faster builds, reduced errors. Testkube is one of the things that we have integrated with, by the way.
Yay.
And so, because those, we started off with this whole conversation with this it's up to $16 million savings, 2 to 3 years of time saved. They are beginning to confirm that, they don't need an extra solution that is piecemeal or fragmented. They are able to get what they need from Dev Plaza. And of course, it's not like, it's a perfect product even today. Like, there's always scope for bringing in more. And obviously, that's where we are getting this feedback from our customers and stakeholders as to what else they would want as part of the platform. And the basic edition is currently live. We are also working on the premium edition, which is next, and eventually we'll work on the comprehensive edition. But yes, we are excited to onboard customers, and by customers I mean over here any sized companies. The only criteria is that they are building something software related and they want to have some kind of monetization. Even if it's at a later point, that's fine. What we want is for them to make something out of that product. And so basically, people or companies of all sizes, even hackathon users that want to spin stuff off and do their own thing eventually, are completely welcome. And
Cool.
so we've started seeing that as well at
Great.
this point.
Okay, let me ask you one final question. I hope this doesn't put you on the spot. So to what extent are you using Dev Plaza to develop Dev Plaza itself?
Okay. I'm glad that was an easy question. We are using it.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are using it. Obviously, we want to drink our own champagne, and we want to make sure that it's all right and it's working from the perspective of what a developer or a team or even an executive would expect. And so we do use Dev Plaza for our own development and testing and release cycles as well.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Sana. It's been a pleasure having you here and talk about AI and quality and Dev Plaza and everything else. I wish you all the best and good luck going forward. And thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you so much. It was
Take care.
such a pleasure talking to you again.
Great to have you. Take care. Bye bye.